Hello, everybody. Cheers to the fantastic Friday. We are discussing chapter number 3 from Hornbill Discovering Tut. The saga continues. I hope you understand the title by now. Tut is, we are talking about King Tutankhamun. The saga continues. Yes, saga is mystery, unsolved mystery. A long story that ends up in a mystery, unsolved, is saga. So that mystery continues. And we discussed yesterday what was that mystery. The mystery was how old was the king when he died and how he died. And murder being the extreme possibility, most of the people they believed that he was murdered and it was not he did not die a natural death. So then we discussed how Howard Carter discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922, and when there were advanced medical equipments available. Why was the king to taken out of his tomb at all, his resting place at all? Let me pause it, there are some background noises. Yesterday we also discussed that there was a long line of tourists and visitors who came from around the globe to pay their homage and respect to the young boyish pharaoh. Pharaoh, I told you, was the title given to the king in Egypt. Pharaoh in British and Pharaoh in American. So we would call it Pharaoh. So the tourists they were amazed and startled when they got into the rock-cut tomb 26 feet underground to pay their respects to the boyish pharaoh. They were gazing at the murals. I'm reading it here, dear students. They were gazing at the murals on the walls of the burial chamber where he was buried. And yes, you know it that he was buried along with certain artifacts of gold and daily essentials and many other things. Why so? Because Egyptians they believed in afterlife. Egyptians they believed in life after death. They had a belief that they could take their riches along in the second life. So he was buried. Where? In the Valley of Kings. A graveyard. A cemetery. Cemetery is a place where dead are buried. Buried, I'm sorry. So that was called the Valley of Kings because that in that cemetery only the people from royal family were buried, preserved, mummified and buried in a casket. So people they came and they were tongue-tied, they were speechless, full of startlement, utterly bewildered and confused. So they were thinking, they were continuously peering at the gilded face of Tut, which was the most striking feature of the mummy-shaped coffin. Some visitors they were reading from the guidebooks in a whisper, others were standing silently, perhaps they were pondering over Tut's untimely death, and there were a few who were troubled, who were horrified, who were terrorized, thinking about Pharaoh's curse. They were wondering with a shiver if the Pharaoh's curse, death, what was the curse? That death or misfortune would fall upon those who would disturb him. They were wondering if it was really true. So we had read it till here yesterday. Let me continue it. I put myself off the screen and continue the chapter. Now listen to me carefully, dear students. I'm reading it here. No, this we have read already. Today I'm reading it here. The mummy is in a very bad condition because of what Carter did in 1920s, said Zahi Hawass. So first who discovered it? Howard Carter, right? But then later after so many years, after 80 years, he was taken out again, this time by Jahi Hawass. Now you can be questioned who was Jahi Hawass. You should be clear about it. He was the Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of antiquities. He was an archaeologist. Archaeologist is a person who conducts scientific study of human antiquities. Right? Howard Carter too was an archaeologist. So you must know the definition of archaeologist, which is very, very imperative for this chapter. So Howard Carter discovered it in 1922, and then once again after 80 years, almost 80 years after the discovery by Howard Carter, Jahi Hawass once again took the body out, the mummy out, and he remarked, he exclaimed as soon as he reached the body that mummy is in very bad condition because of what Howard Carter did. Now you see, when he leaned over the body, when he bent over the body for a long first look, this is when he remarked this, that Howard Carter has imparted a great damage to the mummy. Carter, Howard Carter, that is, was the British archaeologist who in 1922 discovered Tut's tomb after years of futile searching. We have already studied this. Futile means useless, in vain, with no results. It was 15 years to be exact. He discovered the tomb. He spent almost 15 years in futile searching. And then after 15 years, he got success and finally found the tomb, discovered the tomb in 1922. So what he did at that time, this is to be learnt now. Its contents, though hastily ransacked in antiquity, though all the contents, not only mummy, but the things that were buried along with it, the gold artifacts and other antiquities. Antiquity is an antique thing that is related to ancient times and is not available now. That is one of its kind. So all those things were antique things, therefore they were hastily means in a haste, hurriedly, ransacked means looted, plundered. Ransack means to loot, to plunder, to be searched thoroughly for stealing or destroying something. So all the contents of the mummy, the things that were buried along, they were hastily plundered or looted by thieves. But somewhere the parts of the body were surprisingly complete, or you may say it looked complete. It was deemed complete. They remain the richest royal collection ever found and have become the part of Pharaoh's legend. Now, what is legend is also important for you to understand. Legend is a story from past which is believed to be true, but there are no evidences to support it to be true, but it is believed to be true. That is called legend. So the things that were buried along the antiquities, even today they remain the richest royal collection ever found, and they have become the part of Pharaoh's legend, the story about the Pharaoh, King Tut. Stunning artifacts. What were the things that were buried along? What were those antiquities? Stunning artifacts in gold. Artifacts, dear students, objects that were made by human workmanship, right, are called artifacts. So handmade gold things, gold artifacts, their eternal brilliance. Eternal means never-ending brilliance, meant to guarantee resurrection. I told you this is probably the most important word. Resurrection means rising from the dead, rebirth, as they believed in life after death. The way they would put along all these things, they would lay the person to rest and mummify it with lot of antiquities. It would it definitely guarantees resurrection. It one really tends to feel that yes, there is a life after death. The way they confidently, bury all these things along with the dead. So they had a firm belief that there is a second life, there is an afterlife, and it caused a sensation at the time of discovery, and it still gets the most attention. But Tut was also buried with everyday things, not only those artifacts and antiquities, He was buried with daily essentials at the same time that he would want in his afterlife. What were those things? Board games were buried, bronze razor, linen it is called, linen undergarments, and cases of food and wine. All these things were buried along with the boyish pharaoh. So the next paragraph, after months of carefully recording the pharaoh's funerary treasures also I explained you in the beginning. Funerary is related to funeral. Treasures are, the things, all those things were called treasures. The things, the extreme artifacts in gold, ivory, and other objects. Things of great value is called treasure, right? So after months of carefully recording the pharaoh's funerary treasures, now it was time for Carter to begin investigating his three nested coffins. Nested means layers. There were three layers, three lids in a way, right? So they now began investigating the coffins. So first of all, they opened the first cover. Opening the first, he found a shroud adorned with garlands of willow and olive leaves. Now, shroud is a winding sheet used to wrap dead bodies. A cloth used to cover dead bodies, which is generally black in color and white also and red also. He found a shroud adorned with garlands. There were garlands found as soon as they opened the first nest or first layer. And what they found? They found willow and olive leaves. They found wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflowers, which was the faded evidence that the burial he was buried in somewhere in the March or April, as these were seasonal plants and flowers. So that gave them a clue that the burial took place somewhere in the month of March or April. When he finally reached the mummy, after opening the second and then the third nest, he reached the mummy, he ran into trouble. He means who here? We are talking about Jahi Hawass here. No, we are talking about Howard Carter. Jahi Hawass reported, he exclaimed, he remarked that Howard Carter has imparted a great damage to the mummy. Now, this is explained here that how and why, in what sense was the damage imparted, and why it was unavoidable. The Carter is explaining in his defense. When he finally reached the mummy, though, he ran into trouble. What was the trouble? The ritual resins. Resins are sticky substances which result in condensation, you may say, right? So the ritual resins had hardened. Means a semi-fluidic substance is used to mummify the body to prevent it from rotting. So, but that fluid had now hardened and that had caked King Tut to the bottom of the coffin. So the body had got cemented with the coffin. Now the thing was how to get the body apart from the coffin. So they tried everything. No amount of legitimate force could move them. They tried to force it up. They tried to detach it by applying some force, but they could not apply much force. They could apply only legitimate force so that the body doesn't get destroyed. So, but no amount of legitimate force could remove the body, could separate the body from the coffin. And then the question was, what was to be done? How to separate the body from the coffin? Then the Carter thought the sun can beat down like a hammer that if they put the body along with the coffin in summer, in extreme sweltering heat outside, it could separate the body because the resins may melt down. Though the resins that had got hardened. So this is how they tried to to lose the resins by putting the coffin in the sun, and for several hours he set the mummy outside in blazing sunshine that heated it to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. But nothing buzzed means nothing changed. Nothing happened. He reported with scientific detachment, sadness you may say, when you don't feel connected to it, is called detachment, that consolidated material had to be chiseled away. Chiseled means cut with chisel is a tool with a sharp edge and blunt edge on the other hand to hammer it on. So Carter reported that with scientific detachment that the consolidated material, the hardened material, had to be cut with a tool that is called chisel, usually in a metal case. So it was to be chiseled away, scraped out from the beneath the limbs and trunk before it was possible to raise the king's remains. And it was very risky because in the process the body could be left damaged. Let me check the time, dear students. It's 16 minutes and a few seconds. Let me see if I can cover some part of the next paragraph as well. Yes, we can. So in his defense, Carter really had little choice to say anything. If he hadn't cut the mummy free, what was the problem? Why it was very necessary and unavoidable for Carter to remove the body? Why could he not let the body stay there in the coffin? Why was it necessary to take the body out of the coffin? This is how he has explained it. He explained that if he hadn't cut the mummy free, what would happen? Thieves would certainly, most certainly would have circumvented the guards. Circumvented, I explained to you, dodge, to ditch, right? To outwit and outsmart and to escape under the nose, giving a slip. So thieves would come, they would somehow dodge the guards and they would rip it apart in in a bid to remove the gold. To ransack the gold, they would damage the mummy. Their concern was not the artifacts, but in a bid to remove the artifacts, to steal those, ransack those, they may in a hurry damage the body. That was the worry, that was the concern. In Tut's time, the royals were fabulously wealthy and they thought or hoped that they could take their riches with them. Today we say that we cannot, no one will take the riches along, everyone will be left here only. One came empty handed, would go empty handed. But no, such was not the belief in Egypt. They thought that one could take their wealth and riches along in the afterlife. This is what the Egyptians believed in. So we are discussing it till here today, dear students. You'll learn more about the beliefs, the ancient beliefs of Egypt. So I hope you are liking the chapter. It has grown to be a wondrous mystery for all of you, and you must be wondering how people could believe in afterlife. Yes, even today they believe in afterlife. So no one stops you to read it till the last and further. Now there are documentaries made on this. As soon as the school opens, I'll show you the documentary as well on pyramids and all the system and belief in Egypt. So see you tomorrow with the remaining part of the chapter. Thank you and have a nice day.